Well, hello there, Seamus.
Hi, Pierce.
And welcome back to another Is That So podcast.
Yeah, another Is That So podcast.
Had a bit of a hiatus there.
Long awaited.
Yeah, we had an argument about whether this is season 2 or not. I am firmly in the camp of this is season 2.
Welcome back, baby!
Woo! But Seamus said there's no season 2, so I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree here. I don't know how that's going to work with the title of the episode or whatever.
Just the next episode.
Next episode.
You better be ready for the next episode.
We'll see. Maybe the description and the title will differ. That'll throw people off.
I don't know if it's something to be decided.
Right.
We're going to start off today by discussing 2001 Space Odyssey. Excellent film.
What a film.
Yeah, I saw it there the other day for the first time, ashamedly, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and it had even shown in a cinema near us on film some time ago, and we didn't, well, I don't even know if I notified you of this, but we didn't make it out there to see it anyway.
Oh, you didn't see it?
No, it was in the IFI. I mean, I've seen it several times, but I haven't gotten to see it in a actual cinema yet.
Yeah, it's actually great in the cinema.
I think it'd be spectacular in the cinema.
With all the noise and stuff as well. Actually, there's a couple of interesting things about it. I noticed, like, the first time they show humans, like, the first ever time they show humans is a dead human. It's a skeleton, straight off the bat, like. You go
yeah, it is actually, yeah.
So I just thought there was, he definitely did that on purpose as well. He's too clever not to do it on purpose, just to see, like.
All of Stanley Kubrick's films, every scene is just, there's some meaning behind it.
I actually found out as well that he paid a musician to the entire score for that film.
Yeah, I've heard of this, yeah.
And then the musician was, he doing his time, like, making the score or whatever. And while Stanley Kubrick was doing the editing, he was like, I'm going to use this soundtrack. I forget, it's some symphony, I forget the actual. It was
just classical music generally. It was like some of Bach's stuff, I think, and.
I don't even know which one it was, but then he actually liked it too much. So by the time that your man was actually finished the stuff, he didn't even know. Stanley Kubrick didn't even tell him that he wasn't going to use this thing. And so then he was sitting in the fucking movie theater, credits roll up, not his music comes on, like, straight away. It just, like, completely surprised him, like, and that, I still got paid, like, but it's a complete waste. Like, he probably thought was modern composer was going to blow up his career. Like,
imagine he would have made a huge career out of that as well,
one of the pinnacle movies of defining movies. That's such a thing as well. Like, those movies, those, like, great sci-fi movies and stuff like that, they really can, I don't know, change how the world we live in and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess have an effect on.
You like Stanley Kubrick
people's ideas generally.
He was such a stickler for accuracy, even in the the rotation of the spaceships, making them the gravity be okay. So that's the first time they did that in film as well, and that can, like, really impact, like, popular opinion.
And funnily enough, I haven't even seen that in many other films. Like, I think it was in The Martian, in the spaceship in The Martian they had that, but The Martian was 2015 or 2016 when that came out, and that was based on another book anyway. So I've seen and
actually the silence in 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah, in space.
Yeah.
The fact is, I mean, if you look at all the sci-fi films or series, Star Trek, Star Wars, they all have sound in space for some reason. The man knew what he was doing. This is why people thought he faked the moon landings, because he would.
Thought he faked?
I mean, right, okay.
No,
but,
just to clarify,
the moon landings happened. But I am a shill for NASA personally. They pay me off, but yeah. But that's why we'll just leave that one there. But yeah, that's why they thought he might have, or conspiracy theorists who would think that the moon landings were faked, I usually think Stanley Kubrick did all the footage for it because 2001 was so good.
Yeah, I think movies like that are really important as well. Even if, say, they don't directly, I don't know, impact what the reality of the future is, like, then it can be something that people can steer away from or try and achieve anyway. Like, they might fall short of doing the actual concept that he portrayed, or some other concept, or even, like, if a film, like, portrays a dystopia, then people can realize that is a possibility. That's the responsibility of art in a way, like, to educate people in what could happen, and if an artist does a bad job, or, like, if artists in general do a bad job, we could end up in a really bad place, I suppose. Yeah,
true. Or if they just don't do any job, right?
Yeah.
I mean that. Yeah, but no, you're dead right. A lot of these books and films now, and whatever modern media you can think of, they do, as much as they are influenced by the society they're born into, they can also steer the path of it quite a bit as well. So 2001 is an excellent example of that. Although apparently it was a bit of a flop when it first came out. Like not many people got it.
Doesn't matter.
But it did clearly influence. I mean, you know, you can see how even the aesthetics used in 2001 might have influenced some of NASA's designs for space travel or anything like that.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's not the only movie. There's books as well that have influenced maybe social predictions about how society would go forward. But what do you notice about 2001? What particularly interested you? Because you seem to be pushing at the idea there that it influenced us in some way.
I don't think it had any direct influence on, like, say, technology or something like that, straight up, as it is now, you know. It definitely popularized the idea of the rotating spaceship and, you know, the silence in space and stuff. He was just so uncompromising on his practicality and his, you know, righteousness of science. Like
True,
in Star Wars and other space films, I think the only reason they do it is it's hard to pull it off, you know. It sounds eerie, it doesn't sound right when there's just complete silence and stuff like that.
That's what's hard to make action scenes as well.
Yeah, I think and also just, I mean, the takeover of AI, regardless of whatever that obelisk was.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Yeah, if you've never seen 2001 Space Odyssey, probably just watch it. Like,
I just stopped listening to this immediately. Because
there's an obelisk in it that, well, God knows what it represents. So, the corruption of humanity, like, you know, the apple and Eden, like, who knows? But,
yeah, this could be the tree of life. Yeah, knowledge.
The AI taking over HAL or whatever, you know, like that.
HAL 9000.
I mean, that could definitely happen, you know. Has there ever been a problem with you? No, but like it's the first time for everything. Like, I think those sci-fi movies are, if they just like what he's doing there is really important. That he's not actually like lecturing to you that this is exactly how it should be. You know, it's not just like a documentary or something like that. It's showing it completely accurately, and it's making it an amazing film as well. So like another film that like springs to mind, like that pushed the genre, say, is Alien. And you're thinking like, oh, okay, how could Alien, like, you know, push the genre of like realistic, you know, sci-fi movies? And because it's about some sort of black alien that's just like, I don't know,
parasitic
mixed
organism
between like a praying mantis, like with a beetle shell, and just spits ectoplasm and is completely silent until it wants to kill you. Like, but it was the first sci-fi film that portrayed space in a gritty way.
Yeah, true. I mean, like it's an oft-referenced thing or descriptor, but it's like a blue collar astronauts. You know, they're basically the kind of people that you expect to be driving dump trucks or something, and except they're in space.
Yeah, exactly. You just think like from the space age in the 60s and stuff like that. It's like, oh, we're all gonna live on the moon and have moon cake with like shiny rockets that have fins off them and stuff like that. You know, it's just piece of shit freighter just on a planet
leaking, oil coming out of it left, right, and center. Barely functional. The AI is a bit dodgy.
Yeah, just tubes everywhere. Like, these people they clearly don't care about, and then there's just an alien. Like, so they have to deal with that as well.
Yeah. I mean that. Yeah.
So that completely changed what people thought about space. You know, like that. Well,
true. Yeah, because I mean,
travel.
The year before Alien came out, what was there? Star Wars, and Star Wars is all very. I mean, like some of it isn't, but a lot of it is very clean cut lines and, you know, futuristic looking for the time, designs and stuff. Whereas Alien is just a dump truck in space. That's what the Nostromo is.
Also planets that are like fairly hospitable, you know, Star Wars and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
true.
Alien,
actually,
it's just like always dark.
An actual rock.
Just like being pelted by the elements. Like they probably just like barely have enough like gravity and atmosphere to just.
Yeah, even now that I think about it, even the spacesuits are just all rugged. They look like the old diving suits, pressurized diving suits that they would have used in the 1800s. You know, just like rugged, busted up.
It's just like they were given these. It just the impression was they were given these spacesuits because they were like 5 generations back. And
it
really
almost
cheap then,
second hand or something. Everything they're given.
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I'm a big fan of the aesthetic of Alien anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think you're dead right. That kind of Alien kind of made space realistic. Realistic isn't the right word. Yeah, and also made it not realistic because it's not a realistic prediction, but authentic, I think is what you call it.
Yeah, well, I think you could call it authentic for sure. Another one that was an unromantic sci-fi movie as well that you have personal affinity to is Blade Runner as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then the new Blade Runner too. That was
2049. Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Which we have a big discussion because I love Blade Runner 2049. I think the big thing about Blade Runner is that not it wasn't the originator of the idea, but dystopia really distilled in Blade Runner, right? So it's like an unbelievably gritty world, very depressing, very moody. It's kind of played on the fears of what if technology goes wrong, and
also the personal conflict of
Well, I mean, Blade Runner is more about the human part than the futuristic part. It's like how would people interact in this weird dystopia where there are machines that are just as intelligent as humans but don't have as long lives and don't have any rights at all, which is, I guess, just social commentary in of itself. But I think
Is that happening already?
I mean, soon. But yeah, no, it's Blade Runner is mainly social commentary on what could go wrong. I think it was almost an attack on certain optimisms of the time as well, like the optimism that as time goes on, naturally society just gets better no matter what. Whereas Blade Runner was a descriptor of how even if technology and all of the rest of it gets better, that society doesn't necessarily follow that path.
Yeah, you see, and that's what it comes back to what I was saying at the start about it informing us, and like this is a popular movie, that then like this could be a possibility as well, you know. So to just stay away from this, to like mediate science in the way that we might not be able to get there, it like takes that into consideration, like if we were to build an AI now, what would it look like compared to if we had the technology but the attitudes of 100 years ago?
Yeah, true.
So that's what I think the art should inform and constantly make aware that, hey, whatever you're going to do, maybe I don't like fully understand it, but this is a possibility of what can happen, I think Blade Runner is a cool example as well, and sci-fi movies in general, of the boundaries of all kinds of art, especially with Blade Runner, the music, okay? Because in sci-fi movies, you don't have to be even accurate. The science you use could be wrong. It might not, like say in Star Wars or whatever. Hyperdrive is pure sci-fi, or you could be like Stanley Kubrick's 2001: Space Odyssey, and it could be perfectly scientifically accurate, right? But the music in a lot of these films is used to like represent the mood of the film and stuff like that. But they don't have to work inside modern music or modern compositions because it's futuristic, right? So how can you possibly know what music could be in the future? So it gives license to create freely without like prior constrictions, and then that can also like lead to creativity when people are completely unbounded. It might be a mistake, it might be some like weird trashy like weird electronic music that doesn't really go together, or it could be something that inspires modern composition. Even say like the latest Arctic Monkeys album, that was influenced, like what do you call that, space lounge pop or something like that.
Was that I think it was synthwave, wasn't it? I think.
No, but that's what he called it. There wasn't that much synthwave on it. Like it was just.
I didn't listen to it. I just saw the cover art and I was like, I think I see where they're going with that.
Yeah, he just he did it. He based it off like some sort of lounge that was on one of the moons. I think I don't know which of Saturn or something like that. I can't remember.
Probably Titan, realistically.
But anyway, so he was completely free to do whatever he wanted.
Right,
it sounded weird, sounded good, sounded bad, whatever. You think about it, he had the opportunity to do that, and that's exactly what people could do in sci-fi movies as well. It gives license to be completely unbounded.
Yeah, it's a sandbox, and I think like again, sci-fi in terms of the societal things, sci-fi offers a really unique opportunity too, in that you can comment on things that would otherwise be very taboo to comment on within films. So stuff like, it might be very hard to pull off a film where you're criticizing race relations or something like that, right? But if you do it in terms of sci-fi where there's some other species or something that's being brutally oppressed or something like that, it's much easier to slip those ideas into society without, and this film, say, imagine whatever film it is, shows how that's wrong and what's going on there. It would be a lot easier to slip that into society and then have that idea percolate in people's minds about, they would start relating those concepts from the film back to their own life, as people always do, because that's how we come to understand things, is by relating them to stuff we interact with. So yeah, sci-fi, it's just a sandbox generally,
Yeah.
which is what's so useful about
It's
it.
actually really interesting with race relations as well, as you said, because it gives perspective. It gives perspective in the fact that, you know, when there's hundreds of different alien species in the movie, and humanity is a race, it doesn't seem like, you know, that whatever subsets of humanity could even be like acknowledged. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
like
they're just the
humanity
one
as a
thing.
whole, and then you see if someone has like 3 heads or like tentacles or whatever, and they're a sentient species that you can communicate with, well, your friends and family from, and like, you know, people from different countries, they don't seem that different now. You know,
Because there's this weird
Well,
Cthulhu thing trying to
yeah,
communicate with you, yeah.
exactly.
True,
like,
yeah.
So it can bond people together.
And then even again, if you divide it in between, say in a movie like Star Wars, where there's so many different species, there's like aliens who actually speak the same language as the humans, and then there's aliens who don't speak the same language, and it's always instantly easier to kind of relate to the aliens who are just speaking the same language, because you can just get the concepts that they're putting across straight away.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, yeah, useful sandbox to convey such ideas, or any. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be based around that kind of discrimination. It could be any controversial idea. Sci-fi is a very useful place for somebody who has some particularly radical notions about it to express themselves.
Yeah. Also great, like, you know, symbolism, like they can portray, I don't know, different things, like fascism or something like that, you know, but
Yeah, true.
in the guise of, oh, this is an evil alien fascist race. They don't explicitly say it.
It's
but then
fascism.
you
I
can-
mean, the
yeah.
Empire and Star against
Yeah,
Star Wars.
exactly.
The Empire and Star Wars.
You can use that without
Oh, that's
explicitly
weird.
saying
They're
it.
the not Nazis, or they're not communists. Actually, come to think of it, at the time, right?
Which?
Like, as in, the Empire and Star Wars would have been. I'm thinking of who would have been considered the bad guys at the time. Obviously, the Nazis, but also they probably would have. There probably are some communism, you know, notions drilled into the Empire as well.
Are there?
Well, think about it, like mass organization. Everybody, all the stormtroopers are faceless, right?
Yeah.
So they're all just equal. They all wear the same armor. They all just look the same.
Yeah, equal,
sound the
above,
same.
under all the other people.
Right. Yeah.
that are
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the-
I mean, yeah, but that's the
I suppose
that's the
it's
criticism, right? Yeah.
Also very important, I suppose, in sci-fi films and literature and art as well, is the impact on the technologies that they create. You know, it's happened throughout forever, I suppose, that you know, art and movies and literature, they've, well, not forever for movies, but literature and art have influenced exactly what will happen in the technology. You know, even people always say like Star Trek with the mobile phones. And you were saying about you were telling me there recently about Jules Verne.
Oh, Jules Verne, yeah. So it was. I don't think he actually invented the idea of the submarine. I think, funnily enough, there was an Irish guy invented a submarine for the Southern military in the American Civil War for the Confederates, but it was like this real piece of crap wooden thing. But Jules Verne, 5 years later, wrote this book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And there's a ship in that called the Nautilus, which is just called, I can't even remember how, it's been a good few years since I read it now, but I don't know what type of ship he calls it or how he classifies it, but it is just a giant submarine basically. And this thing would have had a lot more capabilities than whatever had been invented at that point did. I mean, they were still using sail ships for the most part at this stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, and now you can see today, obviously it's still mainly military applications, but submarines are quite a common thing. A lot of countries have submarines and stuff. But Jules Verne would have been the originator of that idea. And interestingly enough, there was pressurized diving suits in that book. There was harpoon guns.
Did they not exist at the time?
I mean, they probably weren't very popular in the public imagination. I think a lot of what these guys do is they don't necessarily invent the idea for a technology, unless you're talking about H.G. Wells, who seems to just have invented loads of stuff. But Jules Verne and others, they have heard about some technology that's brand new, and they expand. They are kind of the ideas people, and they're like, okay, this technology exists now, what could you do with this? And so in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the guy, Captain Nemo, is touring the world, basically just trying to capture loads of exotic animals and fossils and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's very 18th century, you know.
Look at that over there.
Yeah,
Let
literally.
me have that.
Yeah, and also would have been influenced at the time by the fact that dinosaur fossils were becoming a big thing at that time as well.
Yeah.
So you can see how society influenced what he was writing about, but how he expounded upon these ideas. Another one that I mentioned was H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells just straight up invented the tank. I mean, I know Leonardo da Vinci had his idea of that wooden contraption back in the 1500s, but H.G. Wells...
I think that was foot powered and everything though as well.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about H.G. Wells was he wrote... the book was called... I think it's called The Land Ironclads. It's a short novella. I read it about 2 years ago, and it was written a good few years before World War One broke out. And first of all, he predicted trench warfare.
Really?
That warfare would be fought in trenches. And secondly, he predicted that the tanks would end trench warfare by just being able to run through the trenches. It happens in his book. Like,
Wow.
they're X amount of years through the war, and they're a bit different to what actual tanks are. I think they're actually like ships on land. But they kind of just roll through and completely annihilate all of these defenders of the trenches. And he wrote this a good few years before, I can't remember the exact date, but maybe 10, 20 years before World War One actually broke out.
Yeah.
So again, this is just a writer who's kind of spitballing, writes a short novella and invents the army tank, which became a staple, I guess, of military conflict for about 100 years there.
Yeah. It is interesting, and you'd wonder how much that had an impact on the actual creation of the tank. You know.
It's also funny that I'm pretty sure I am correct. If I am correct, that nobody picked up on the idea. You know, that guy had written this book. He was a pretty popular writer, and nobody actually picked up on the idea. Oh, maybe.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like if needs must kind
of
thing.
It's
like,
true. Yeah.
You're not going to have a peacetime tank, you know.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah.
Let me just put all my investment into building these land ships, these
tank.
armored land ships. No, but if you're in the grips of war and half your country's in a trench, you're like, oh,
true, yeah.
Well, actually, maybe this might be a good idea. Like,
what was that idea your man had again? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's the same with the space race, you know.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
You're like, what do you mean Russia put a satellite up there? God damn it! Let me. You know, that's the only reason. You know.
Actually, another interesting. If we're talking about technology, another interesting one is again, I don't know if this guy was the originator, but Aldous Huxley, when he wrote Brave New World, he actually had an idea for rocket planes. This was in the 1930s, and obviously jet planes kind of came about in 1940 something. But he had, and jet travel as a generic civilian thing didn't really happen until the 60s. That's when it started. So in 1933 he wrote this book, or at least it was published in 1933, and obviously the actual thrust of the novel is about this dystopian future, a consumerist future, which is another thing we can talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
But the mass transportation system for getting around the world is rocket planes, which seem to function exactly how jet planes would function today. They're like mass civilian transports.
That's interesting that you even had the concept of rockets, like.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because rockets, like, nothing had reached space at that stage.
Yeah, but even what would rockets have been? Was there wartime rockets?
I mean, there were fireworks. You know, there were rockets.
Yeah,
but there weren't. Yeah. No, there weren't wartime rockets until Wernher von Braun built them in.
V2 and stuff.
Yeah, I think the Chinese might have used some fireworks in the 15th century as like they had these weird rocket things, but that was more of a scare tactic than.
Oh, they just shoot fireworks.
They would have a big rack of like 50 fireworks and they'd fire them all. And obviously you're some peasant in the 15th century, so you've barely even seen fire, right? Because it's too rainy. So you've never ever seen anything like this. And there's these screaming things flying at you.
How is the sky on fire?
You probably thought they were dragons, realistically, right? But yeah, I don't think they hadn't. Certainly not to the extent of the idea of rockets being used for travel. Probably wasn't entirely expounded upon. I mean, in that film, The Men Who Go to the Moon, they used an artillery gun to shoot the people to the moon. So there's this French film. It was one of the early films, the Men Who Go to the Moon, and they just shoot the moon with an artillery shell, and there's people in the artillery shell. That's how they get there.
Wow.
Yeah. Look that one up. That's an interesting one. They meet moon people there as well. I think they're just tribalistic cannibals or something.
In the moon.
Oh yeah, and there's a hilarious picture of it where it's just, you know, the moon, people often depict the moon as having a face. The artillery shell just lands in its eye, and the moon does not look too pleased about it at all.
He's probably crying.
Yeah, a little bit. And he's got a bit of a smirk on his face, actually, as far as I remember. But he might be supposed to be angry, but it definitely looks like he's having a cheeky little laugh about it. But so anyway, yeah, it is pretty impressive that Aldous Huxley just kind of came up with rocket planes there.
Yeah. It's incredible as well, you know, how long ago, or how short a time ago, that they probably thought there was moon people up there, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, they thought there was canals on Mars when H.G. Wells wrote War of the Worlds, because they thought with telescopes, Yeah, because
like just straight
like
up,
water canals, because they saw these straight lines on Mars, and they were like, obviously the only thing that could be is the only thing they could think of, because think about it, they had never seen satellite shots of the world, obviously.
Yeah.
The only thing they could, or even plane shots of the world at that stage, the only thing they could think of was that somebody had built canals on the moon, and so there was another civilization on the moon. So there was this really interesting period that you can read up about it, from like the mid to late 18th century to a fair bit into the mid to late 19th century to a fair bit into the 20th century, where there was like a lot of people would have thought there was life on Mars, like quite a few people. It was not a fringe thing at all. Definitely thought there was water on Mars for sure. I mean, it seems like now that but flowing water.
Yeah.
Now it seems like now that there was at some stage in Mars's past, there more than likely was flowing water, but yeah.
Yeah, that's strange. It's incredible. The what was I going to say there? I don't even remember.
What were you going to say?
Don't even remember.
Well, if you want, here we go.
I do remember. So you know the first person who kind of got. There was actually one person you can like get it back to who inspired NASA to actually take pictures of the Earth.
I do not know this
It was
person.
this guy, and it was just some hippie, and he was in America, and he was looking out into the sea, and he saw, the curvature of the Earth, and he was like, "Oh, this is amazing," and he's like, "So many people still think this is flat. Like, what the fuck?"
I mean, to this day.
And it was just at the stage where, let's not go there. He was still thinking like, how are we going to get this done? And NASA had just started to like send satellites that would, or not satellites, I don't know, stuff that would take pictures of outer space, right? And he was like, "Oh well, they're facing the cameras the wrong way. Like I want to see what Earth looks like, So he made like buttons, and he made them like this like questioning kind of thing, and just gave them out. He's like, "Why haven't we seen the Earth yet?" Like kind of like just NASA straight up like, "Come on, why haven't we seen the Earth?" And he like gave them out, and it became like this really popular thing until NASA eventually had to cave because everybody's wearing these buttons.
Why haven't we seen the Earth?
And then they just
took a picture of it.
Eventually, just took a picture of it.
That's nice. I've heard quite a few people say that's so. It seems a bit generic to me, or a bit overblowing the impact a bit, but it does seem to be somewhat true that those photos of the Earth kind of inspired a lot of the environmental movements, because people saw all the green on the Earth and all the brown and the seas and everything, and like, backdropped against this eternal void of nothingness around all of it, which is space, and people were probably like, "Oh wow, well it's just kind of Earth, that's it, that's all we have, so maybe we should protect it." And around the same time that those photos came out, especially I think there's a famous one that's the cover of one of the Nat Geo magazines, that's when the environmental movement was sparked. So that's another example of how, well, I guess not.
That's how technology.
How technology informs society. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. When you get perspective, or if you just live in one town your entire life, you're like,
true. Yeah.
Well, what do you mean there's a China? Back in the day, it's only now that we can really truly appreciate the interconnectivity of it all.
Yeah, and how small it is as well. Really, like there's not much Earth.
Well, as you get faster, it becomes smaller, right?
Yeah,
it's just if you can travel to Dublin in 30 minutes, it doesn't take half a day in a horse and cart now. That's just it doesn't seem like it's that big at all. What were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you?
Oh, well, actually, I was rudely interrupting you, but I was going to say, if you just go back to Aldous Huxley, in terms of predicting societal things, there was two great dystopian novels of that kind of era. It was Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and obviously 1984 by George Orwell. And George Orwell, in 1984, kind of predicted a future where what would happen if some totalitarian, in his case, extremely socialistic, communist, or just generic totalitarian regime took over the entire world. How would that pan out? And obviously it was brutal repression, very shitty living standards for the population, etc. I think a lot of people know the general thrust of 1984, so I won't even describe it. But Aldous Huxley, interestingly enough, earlier than George Orwell, had a different prediction, and it's a future where rabid consumerism has kind of taken over the world, and it's more of like a dystopian capitalist future. funnily enough, living standards are still higher than they would be in 1984. But to me, his predictions seem to have been much more true. So, for example, you haven't read it, have you?
I haven't
So
read
in
1984 though.
yeah, so in the novel, a lot of people are kept happy just through recreational drugs all the time.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
there's a thing called soma, which is kind of now
Yeah, Soma is the Greek drug of the gods, right?
yeah,
That was
exactly, yeah.
originally,
And it's yeah, exactly, and it's this drug that they use to keep them. So whenever a member of the population gets stressed, they just take this soma, and it completely fixes that or whatever. And it was kind of representing how he actually kind of predicted genetic engineering as well, which is interesting. I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, it's a different dystopia in that everybody is encouraged to be a constant consumer. You're actually mandated by the government to buy as much stuff as possible and throw out old stuff.
Oh really?
Yeah, and a lot of the people in the novel, they're obviously naturally they're incredibly vapid, and they only really draw meaning from like physical pleasure or material possessions. And it seems to be a bit of a better prediction of where society would go than 1984. If you're counting them as predictors.
Yeah, we're not so bad in Ireland at the moment with the, medication problem, but like
true.
in America, very very bad.
Yeah, I think it's a very like his book. If you read it today, is a very strong indictment of American society, and I think I'm generally more pro-American than most European people would be.
Yeah.
I try to not look down my nose at them or whatever, but which a lot of Europeans do seem to do. But it's definitely like.
But they look up to us, so it's.
I mean, yeah, right,
you know
fair,
what I mean?
fair.
Someone looks up,
Fair,
someone's down.
but don't want to preach here or
Yeah,
anything.
no.
But it's an excellent indictment of America in that everybody's drugged up.
Not
It's kind of
everybody now.
But I would say the society generally is highly over medicated.
Yeah.
And it's very consumer oriented. Very vapid. There's not.
You wake up and straight up coffee in the morning is caffeine, which is a drug, which is a complete addiction of like a lot of American people, I suppose. And tea is more popular kind of over here. Not that people don't like coffee either, but between anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, mix that with legal weed, painkillers.
All taken in the same day as well.
Yeah, opiate or non-opiate variety. Like the anxiety and like SSRIs, which regulate your serotonin, right? If you then take like an illegal drug, right? If you take MDMA, you're taking something that regulates your serotonin and then something that gives you loads of serotonin. It can't be good for you at all. And then Ritalin is an amphetamine, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Amphetamines. I think there's been some research on how bad they're for you. But and then what was it the one taken at nighttime for sleeping, like Ambien and
NyQuil.
melanin or what? It's I forget the name of it, but it's another.
There's so many things that sound like that. Melatonin. Melatonin high.
Yeah, but just a cocktail can't be good.
But it's the mix of all of them throughout the day, which is really odd. But again, like in the novel, he kind of predicts this idea that I guess he was coming up around the time when penicillin was just coming online. And stuff
I think the problem with just those is that although some of the, unless you're like schizophrenic or bipolar or something that actively needs corrective medication, there's positives and benefits to certain personality traits that this just kind of evens out, like the soma, Just because you're anxious, like, unless you're completely crippled by it, that might mean that you get more work done because you're like, oh shit, I don't actually want to, be late for this meeting, or I don't want to be late for this deadline. So you're anxious about it, and then you get it done, and then because you completely limit it, you change your personality in some way that just is, I don't know, unachievable unless you get rid of that drug. And it happens. It's just those constant medications. There's always a side effect to it in that way. Like,
I mean, obviously, we Irish people also heavily self-medicate with tons of alcohol, but that's a little bit different.
Anti.
Anti, yeah.
We're actually, I was looking up, we're the second highest consumer of tea in
Turkey.
the world. Turkey, yeah.
Rats. They don't even drink real tea though. They drink fruit tea and
tea.
just covered in sugar. Yeah.
Pure black tea is what we drink.
Disgusting.
Yeah, no, we've got sidetracked.
Yeah, but anyway,
Of all things.
I was just saying that like, so his writing seems to have been a bit of a, if the two of them were trying to predict some future, that Aldous Huxley's writing seems to have predicted it. Another thing is, you know, we've talked about before that genetic engineering might soon become a reality. The whole idea in Brave New World is that the society is broken up into several classes. It was 2 years since I read it now, but I believe it's alphas, betas, deltas, gammas, and epsilons, and they're all genetically engineered. First of all, nobody's born biologically; they're all put in test tubes, and they're test tube babies, all of them. But they're all actually genetics weren't even known of yet, but they were all messed with in the test tubes so that they come out a certain way. So like the bottom rung of the society, the epsilons, are actually like, they actually put alcohol in the test tubes to inhibit the brain growth and stuff like that.
Really?
And so the entire society is stratified. The whole idea is everybody's supposed to be, they're all classically conditioned as well, as soon as they are born. So the whole idea is that they're all happy in their societal roles and nobody really discriminates against the other classes, but it's a caste system, effectively. So, I mean, that could be a very old but, you know, pretty solid criticism of where stuff like genetic engineering or eugenics, I guess, in his time could go. This brutal, you know, dissecting and reorganizing of society based around these, you know, intelligence lines, physical capacity lines.
And they do that for like efficiency of the society?
Yeah, so the whole idea is like the epsilons, who are the lower classes, they would usually be like physically and mentally impaired, so they would do all like the very menial tasks, like say being a elevator operator, I think is the main example given in the novel, or it's just very simple stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if the next class up who would just do manual labour, the next class up who might, I don't know, do spreadsheets or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, this is before computerization and automation as well, so you still need all of these people to do all of these things.
Yeah. It's weird because if that novel was written today, you probably wouldn't even consider an elevator operator a thing.
No,
It'd
no,
just be
it
like,
wouldn't be.
oh, it'd be an automatic, robotic.
Yeah. I mean, if you're writing some kind of dystopian novel like that today, those people wouldn't even be born, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be allowed to be born.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Population control or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That seems
Rough stuff. You should definitely read it. I would recommend that to all of our listeners. Brave New World.
all
All of
of
thousands of our listeners.
I think we do this for the fun of it, not the.
All of our loyal listeners.
When we somehow, like, we've just after discriminating anybody in America, you know, like, we're not doing a very good job of expanding our listenership.
America, I love you. Please, if you get the Space Force, annex Ireland and make us the 51st state, because I will join up immediately. No hassle. Space Force, I'm there. I want to do vacuum welding. Give me that.
Where did that go, actually?
It's somewhere. It's in some bill, hidden away in some bill somewhere, I'm sure, that they're going to try and get passed. Oh yeah, also Space Force was in this. There you go.
It'd be like civil rights and Space Force, like.
I reckon it is going to go there anyway, right? Because they all, like China, Russia, America, and probably some European countries as well, have been using spy satellites since the 70s. Anyway, so, well, I mean, China was mainly agrarian in the 70s, but, you know, the rest of them have.
Yeah,
so,
war in space, that's been like.
Yeah,
since
Ronald
sci-fi
Reagan's
as well. No,
things, the Star Wars project.
What was that book that you always talk about it? The one about Nazis and going to the moon. What was that?
Nazis, is that a film?
I think it was a book. It was Red Dawn. No.
Nazis going to the moon.
Oh.
No, there's a film called oh shit, what, Iron Sky?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just about Nazis on the moon. Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, but where were you going with that?
I was just saying, like, weaponized space.
Weaponized,
you know,
yeah.
and that.
Yeah.
Like, that's been a thing for a while as well. You know.
Well, there's another thing. I mean, that society's finally seems to be going there is that for years.
Low orbit nuclear weapons.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but for years now, sci-fi has been predicting space warfare, and it seems like that might be coming true slowly but surely.
When's it gonna come though?
Oh, hopefully within our lifetimes. Hopefully within our lifetime. I want to see it. I want to look up into the sky some night and just see lasers flying across. I'm like, oh, that's a battleship just going on fire up there. Look at that.
Oh, and space, love and peace.
Space, love and peace. Just between Mars and like Venus or something.
Yeah, that was actually an interesting one as well. I forget the name of the show, but wasn't it that it was the premise of the show? I think you were telling me about this. Was that you know, humans colonized many different places in the solar system, not outside the solar system.
I think I know where you're going with this.
And they eventually got out to the asteroid belt, you know, and because there's valuable stuff that the resources.
I'll just before you can go forward, I'll tell you the name of the thing. The show is called The Expanse, and it's based. I think it's originally based on a book called Leviathan Wakes, but I don't know how heavily it is based on it. But anyway,
yeah. So certain humans, go out there to mine ore from these rocks or whatever, and then people live on Mars and the moon and probably some of the other moons, and they basically, people living in different places have different conditions, gravitational, different exposure to like solar rays and everything like that, so people become deformed. So the people in the asteroid belt, they're called belters. And it sounds funny in an Irish context actually, but and I think they all have South African accents as far as I remember for some reason. But yeah, their bodies kind of become elongated and more brittle because they're living in these low gravity environments. So they're all like a bit taller on average than everybody else, but they're also like much more easy to hurt. Their bones break easier, stuff like that. And then so they're discriminated against. They're kind of seen as like an underclass of people. Which is again right. It's just commentary on seeing, racial divisions or social divisions, class divisions, whatever. And then the other main commentary of the book is that Mars and Earth are locked in a Cold War. So just literally a commentary on the Cold War there, and it's just differing ideologies about it. And Earth is this elitist place where life is very good for the majority of the people. Mars is a very rugged, hard to live place. I actually think though in the future, if and when we do colonize Mars, that'll be the opposite way. I think Mars will be for the elite, because you only definitely at the start you're only going to send your best and brightest there, okay, and the rich people. They look at it right now, all the space companies. There's even a private space company or whatever. What's the Richard Branson's one? Just the tourism one.
Oh, Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, you can just spend money to just be in space for a little bit, but you're going to send your smartest and your richest to Mars originally, and if they somehow manage to like colonize it perfectly, get an atmosphere there and everything, then I don't see why the rich wouldn't go there, because they'd be the ones that will be traveling and could own vast amount of real estate there, because you have to get off Earth, which would cost money, so you need to have money to get off Earth. So I think that people would be left on Earth would be poorer than the people on Mars.
True, I suppose, but I also I do think that for a long time any colony off of Earth is going to be heavily reliant, right?
Definitely,
on being so like, I think Musk's ambition of having 1 million people on Mars by the time his life ends is very ambitious, to say the least.
Well, he's 2050 or something.
Yeah, well, just by the time he's dead, I think is his ambition. But I mean, having a safe, self-sustaining city on another planet, that's going to take some doing, you know what I mean? But I think you are right, like, especially, it depends what you say by elite. I guess people could just pay to go that far as well.
That's what I mean, but you need to have the money, so that's kind of an elitism.
True,
you know what I mean?
I also think it'll mainly be like an intellectual elite who will be sent, right? You're going to want people who can kind of figure their way through whatever problems might arise there. But maybe not. It's going to be scientists who will get sent first, right? Maybe some military people, if it's, an American government thing or a Russian government thing, Chinese government thing. But I think it will, intellectual and financial elite for sure. Well, it's the financial elite who are going to fund it. That's who's doing it at the moment. It's not governments. It's Bezos, Branson, and Musk.
Because there's no direct benefit from living on Mars right now.
Yeah,
unless we can completely colonize the planet.
Unless you really don't like other people, and you just unless you just.
No, then you shouldn't go to Mars, because you can just escape on Earth. You have to live in a pod with someone forever.
Oh, come on! It's pretty hard to be like an Ionan monk these days. Where are you going to go? People own all the land.
Portlaoise.
Fair actually. Yeah,
What's there?
Longford.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's plenty of places.
Sligo IT.
There's plenty of jungle spaces still on Earth,
Maybe.
No, there is, like.
Maybe. Let's go live on Skellig Michael with Luke Skywalker.
He's not there anymore. Is that the end?
And that might be the end of this.
Is that the end, my friend?
Of this return to form of the Is That So podcast. That was a bit of a meandering one, but I liked it.
I liked it too. It was interesting, to a certain extent.
I mean, it's all in the ear of the beholder, I guess, right? The brain of the beholder. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it has to come through the ear first. Anyway, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of it.
Get rid of it.
Alright, at the end of the day tonight.
If it's sick, if you're sick, you'll
If
be well.
it's
If it's
sick.
sick, oh
my god. Goodbye.
unprofessional.
Goodbye.
Guys, the
Finished.
production quality has dropped over the last 6
I'm
months.
looking for a new podcast co-host. If you're interested.
Maddie, I'm going to do a
goodbye.
podcast with you instead of Seamus now.
Yeah, okay, goodbye.
Bye.